Okay, so just repeating the welcome to everyone that joined now. Today we are going to have a session for the next 1 hour and a half about the different data roles, so data analyst, data scientist, and data engineer. We are recording the session and we're going to upload it later on YouTube. So if you are okay with you being on YouTube, you can leave your camera on, otherwise you can turn it off. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat. We are going to read them during the session, so you don't need to wait until the end. And also the slides that you are seeing shared, you will receive them via email. So you don't also need to worry about that. I think we can start. So I am Danian. Hi, I am one of the hosts for today. I am together with my co-host Irena and our special guest Eva. So let's get started here with this slide. I think I am there. So we have here this quote by Jean-François Garnier. He is one of the researchers in the AI field based in Canada. And the idea here is that this quote from him very much aligns with our motivation to do this webinar today and also other webinars that we do as the AI Guild regarding data careers. So the idea is that because it's also a very new field, it only takes 4 years of experience to become a senior AI researcher or even 5 years to lead an institute. And that it takes determination and discipline to improve both soft skills and hard skills to become a successful researcher in the field. So we are not going to be talking so much about research, but more about industry jobs. And we can also see something similar there, that with 4 or 5 years, you are already senior and you can become a team lead if that's the career path you choose. And especially today, we're going to talk about the different roles that we see. So maybe a lot of you have, looking for a job, you have seen that there is a mix of data analyst positions, data scientist, data engineer, or machine learning engineer. And what we bring today is some ideas on how to differentiate between the roles. And Eva specifically is going to talk about her journey and the differences that she has seen. So before we start, we would like to introduce ourselves. And I think the first one is Irena.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the this 10th anniversary edition of the webinar. My name is Irena. I am a accredited practitioner, data scientist, working currently at Zalando. I am working with A/B testing and marketing at the moment. In general, I started my journey as an analyst at Berlin after finishing my PhD here at the Technical University of Berlin. Then I switched to Zalando, and yeah, I studied applied math. Now I'm in the data science world. I'm always curious to see and how the whole field is evolving as we go further, so to say, in the years. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here and answer any questions that you might have throughout the webinar.
It's cool. Thank you, Irena. The next one is me. So I am Daniel. I am one of the founding members of the AI Guild, and I am leading the Data Lift initiative, which is about deploying data analytics and machine learning to production. So we run online events, and we are also planning in-person summit for next summer. If you are interested in that, you can also find more information probably on the on the AI Guild website or on the Data Lift website or on Eventbrite. I don't know where you found this event. You'll probably find Data Lift there as well. I have been in data since 2012. I started as a marketing analyst, and then more recently, I was a data scientist. I focused mostly on machine learning models for predictive analytics. And I was also teaching at a data science bootcamp. And if you want to connect on LinkedIn, you find either by my name or via link. And now our guests.
Hi everyone, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks a lot, Dania and Irena, for inviting me. I'm Eva. I'm currently data analytics manager of the product analytics team at Contentful. I discovered data analytics around 4 years ago while finishing my mathematics studies, also here in Berlin, at Freie Universität. And I found data analytics to be a really interesting area where I could also enjoy my analytic and mathematics skills by seeing the impact of things that might seem abstract at first sight. In comparison to Irena, I'm more from the theoretical mathematics side, and I will tell you a little bit of my journey later. Thanks a lot.
Cool. Thank you, Eva, for joining us today. Really looking forward to hear more about your journey. So before, I just want to give you one outline of what we have planned for you for the next 1 hour and a half. We start first talking a little bit about the AI Guild and the efforts to advance careers in data. Then I will talk about the different roles and what are the different skills and responsibilities for each of the roles. Then we have Eva here talking about her journey, and we wrap up with some orientation in the labor market for the people looking for a job. So we also would like to hear a bit, who are you that are there listening us? You have heard our introduction now, and to get to know you a little bit better, we have a poll. So we ask you to send the information. It's also confident and it's not personal. So we don't know who is answering what, but it's more of a collective information. So we know where you are and which kind of role you're more interested in. So maybe we'll see some pop-up now asking for the input. Okay, while you answer it, let's talk about the AI Guild Data Career Initiative.
Yeah, so I'm happy to share a little bit of background on how everything started and why is AI Guild interested in advancing the careers in data science. Basically, as we started with the AI Guild, me and Dania are members since its very beginning. We always had like one common topic or pain point, so to say, that was what are the different roles in this world of data science and machine learning, and how do you search for the best one, and how do you switch once you started and you figure out you want to do something else. I think it's a common problem. Many of various roles which are coming from a new field, that it's not that easy to distinguish, for example, the roles. But first of all, even to find a role, because as you know, the data science world or roles are not that structured at the moment. There is no clear career path. Who have studied, like if you studied, let's say, medicine, and you know, okay, I studied this, I do this exam, and then I find the job for that particular thing that I studied. With machine learning and data science and AI and so on, it's rarely that the person studied exactly that. And this is good because people that studied in any field can actually find the job in the market, but actually it makes it more difficult both for the people who apply and for the people who hire. And that's why we saw that finding the first role and even the second, it's quite difficult, because it's hard to kind of convince someone that you studied, let's say, theoretical math. Why should you be good in doing data analytics? For many managers, it might not be clear because they don't see the connection. And this is where the AI Guild is trying to help people and I will speak about the various possibilities later on. What we noticed then that a kind of easier way or path to do is that once you've landed inside a company, then it's easier to switch inside because people know you, then you can share and they can see your skills. You can clearly somehow be open about the other, let's say, aspects of the work that you are interested in, and it's easier somehow to convince the managers that you are actually maybe good or even better in another role. So switching inside the company might be easier. And on the other hand, again, regarding applying, often it's not that clear, and this was also one of the goals of the webinar why we are doing this. Often this is not clear by the job description, what is actually meant, what's hidden behind it. If I apply for it and even if I get it, will I actually be working on the topics that I have in my head, or will my skills match the requirements? What is actually meant? And if you're looking for a job, how do you even start searching? Do you search only for data analysts or data scientists or engineers? So it can be, the job positions are very misleading often, and we are happy to answer some questions there, and but also to encourage everyone to search wider, because just the title yeah, might not be saying everything. Again, because just the field is too new, and already is not new, maybe it's already old, but I think still not old enough as, let's say, being an accountant or something like this. And then yeah, the role in real life doesn't matter. I mean, I already spoke about this, right? When you come to the job, it's the question what you will be actually working on. And yeah, when we observe the market, we also see that of course there are different roles that you can go to. There is a specialization, and the roles are different, and the way that you can move in your career, it's also different, might depend from company to company, might depend on the size, might depend on the type of the industry you are in. But still, what we see that is also very important is the domain expertise. It means that when you are working on your career, on one hand, you have to be working on that, becoming a good data scientist, let's say, to have a deep knowledge on the whatever machine learning models you are using and so on. So really on the, let's call it mathematical or statistical knowledge. But on the other hand, this is not that useful if you don't have a knowledge particularly in the domain expertise, in the business, on the business side. So whatever the company is doing, if it's e-commerce, if it's airline industry, or if it's yeah, it could be anything, this, but maybe medicine and so on. This expertise is also very valuable, because without it, it's hard to kind of pose the correct questions and find the right answers. Because I think maybe the managers who are on top, they are lacking this other specific scientific knowledge. So for them, it's harder to know what is actually possible. And we are here not just to do what we do, but also to say, okay, this is actually something where we can do something. Because often the task is like, we need this and that, but it's not clear what are the possibilities and where are the limitations of the data, let's say. And then yeah, we also observed that the proof of concept play is ending. Now everybody is into deployment. So then here the engineering skills are coming. It's not just important to be able to kind of write notebooks and just kind of try and play with the data and to see if there is something behind it or not. But more and more valuable is actually to bring a model to its end, to make it scalable, to make it reproducible, to put it into production, and to be able to deliver result on a constant basis and to improve. And here, yeah, a lot of engineering skills and a lot of new technologies coming up, especially with the data, let's say, moving from the regular data warehouse to cloud service are needed. And yeah, so in terms of instead of proof of concept, we go to a deployment phase. And yeah, as Dania said, we AI Guild is also active on this field. That's why we have the Data Lift project. But here again, back to the career path, we at AI Guild are also there in general, really to lead and or to help everyone who is on their career journey go, so to say, always further and up. And there are few concepts and few initiatives where you can take part in. One is the seminar, the webinar, where you are already today. So this is great, and maybe someone of you already have been to some of the other webinars. If not, you are very invited to see this. So we have webinars on validating the CV, then the competency profile. And so somehow we start from the little. So when you're maybe already still a student or a member of a boot camp or something, so you are learning, you're searching for a job, then the most important thing that you need in order to get a job is the CV, to be up to date, to be according to the newest and the best standards for data science in particular. Then that your profile, that you are moving from junior to mid to senior data practitioner. And at the end, what we are also offering for those who are already advanced in their career and professionals in their field, both in domain and possess domain expertise and business expertise, that's the accreditation. So becoming an accredited professional, accredited data scientist, or data analyst or engineer is something that one can do within the AI Guild. And we will also speak about this again at the end of the presentation. If you have questions, also anytime you are free to ask. But really, the goal is somehow to have, on one hand, a great community to share our, so to say, ideas, goals, but also to help each other and also to evaluate each other, not evaluate, maybe validate and appreciate, right? That we learn from each other and we make sure that what we are working is on the highest standard. Because as I mentioned, so until we have a very rigid or maybe we will never have one very rigid concept how you evolve in the data career path, AI Guild is here to bring somehow some perspective and put some frames and make sure that we know what we are doing and we are appreciated for. And yeah, so these are the various opportunities that I already mentioned. And of course, you are invited to be not only a passive participant in terms of a listener as you are today, but you are also very welcome to be an active member of the community and be a guest, like today in today's webinar, like Eva is, for example. Then also think about becoming an accredited expert, maybe take part in the career development program or in the data lift. So in any of the initiatives of the AI Guild. First of all, if you are not a member yet, that's, I think, the first step. Feel free to check the AI Guild webpage. Afterwards, it is for free and it's a great opportunity. We are also having regular meetups for networking, dinners, and so on. So really, I think, yeah, it's hard to say we are a great community, but I really like it's my favorite community full of nice people that you can learn from and inspire each other. So I really invite you all to check some of the other initiatives. So I think before we go to the next step, we are finished with pool. So thank you everyone for sharing your information. And so, yeah, it's great to see that we have people from Berlin, but also a lot of people from Berlin. So yeah, I think the three of us are also based in Berlin, and AI Guild was formed in Berlin. But it's great to see that we have the other 2/3 are from another place in Germany or another place in the world. This is really great. And yeah, usually.
Sorry, maybe people from another place in the world could say it in the chat. Where are you from? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, this is a good question. Maybe next time we need to have a more granular question there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. From Sweden, USA, from Kenya, Indonesia. Nice. Yeah, really from anywhere in the world, people are joining. Really nice to see that.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, so we have people with most of people have less than 1 year of experience. This is great. I mean, this is also one of the aims of the webinar, to speak to the younger, so to say, to the starters in data science. But we are also, yeah, I think everyone can find something interesting. And yeah, data analyst, data scientist, 50%. So this is really great. And we have few of data engineers and analysts. So yeah, no matter what your role is, and no matter how far you are in your career path, feel free to ask questions, to be an active participant. I think it's one of our main goals to have this webinar, is to be as interactive as possible. We are here for you and for your needs, so to say. So yeah, we'll go further with the presentation, but always happy to answer some questions on the way.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Irena, for the introduction. So I will take over now to talk about the different roles. And yes, so what I have here is a diagram inspired on something that was published by Google researchers in this paper, Hidden Technical Debt in Machine Learning System. And we have basically different pieces, each piece that contributes to end-to-end machine learning or to productionizing solutions. And I also listed the different roles. So for example, in blue, we have the data engineer, and in blue, the pieces that are mostly the main responsibilities of a data engineer. For example, data collection, data quality, and data pre-processing. Then we have in yellow the data analyst, which is, well, analysis, the contribution with the business logic, and understanding of A/B testing. Then in red, we have the data scientist. So here it's about the feature extraction, parameter configuration, and offline validation of models. In gray, there is the machine learning engineer. So the overall infrastructure for everything. Then the configuration, machine resource management, as well as the process management tools and monitoring. Finally, in green, there is the AI researcher, which is here responsible for the machine learning models. So this is more of an overview, just to show how much we have first, how many pieces, different pieces contribute to productionizing machine learning, and how each of the roles has influence in different parts of it. But in the end, it's really everything together that makes it an end-to-end pipeline. A little bit more details of the data career roles. So if we start again with the blue, the data engineer, the main tasks are usually about building and maintaining the infrastructure for the data pipeline, which means collecting the data, cleaning the data, and pre-processing this data.
Daniel?
Yes.
Sorry, there's one question in the chat, just because maybe before you go further, the question is, what is offline validation? Maybe you also can explain it in this slide or in the previous one.
Yes, yes, exactly. So the offline validation here is for the data scientist. This means validating the machine learning model performance before putting it online or before deploying it to production. And usually that is theoretical measurement. For example, if you're talking about a regression, maybe you want to measure the mean error or the MSE. And this is something that we usually test or we validate before deploying the model. Usually there is kind of a minimum required performance of the model to say that it's good enough to be deployed and go live. I hope that answered the question. I see that a question also about sharing the recordings. Yes, so we are recording the session and it will be uploaded to YouTube later. So we are going to share both the slides and the link for the recordings with you. Okay, I'll go back to the roles, and I was talking about the data engineer. Yes, to do that infrastructure for the data collection, pre-processing, cleaning, the skills required are usually distributed systems knowledge about databases and software engineering. For the data analyst, the main tasks are understanding the business and data to report on what happens. And the skills here are descriptive analytics, SQL, statistics, and dashboarding and visualization tools. For the AI researcher, the task is building new machine learning algorithms or finding custom scientific solutions. Skills are research and presenting at conferences, writing publications. For the data scientist, the main task is understanding the business case and building features with the data to train predictive models to address the business use cases. So skills are statistics, SQL, some programming language, for example, Python or R, machine learning and deep learning techniques. And then finally, the machine learning engineer has the task to optimize, deploy, and maintain the models in production. And for that, the skills required are software engineering, DevOps or MLOps, and systems architecture. Yes, as I mentioned before, or in the first picture that I shared, data science is really a team sport. Because to deploy solutions, you need all those pieces, and each piece is a different kind of skill set, and that is uncommon to find in only one person. So the better solution is to find a team with skills that complement each other so they can collaborate and really understand the full picture and deploy machine learning end to end. I didn't mention all the roles that exist in the world. Let's say there are even more expertise roles that are coming up. For example, here on the right, I have the NLP engineer or the computer vision engineer or the DevOps engineer. And there are also complementary roles from product and business, for example, a product owner or some domain experts that contributes most of the times with process understanding and even labeling the data. So this is constantly evolving. There are maybe new roles coming up. I think someone mentioned here the role of the analytics engineer, and there are always things that are coming up. The idea here is to give an overview, or let's say a more theoretical split on the different roles. But what happens in reality is that different companies have different team setups, and the description can vary a bit depending on the title. So I don't know. Yeah. So I think that for each of those, let's say, 5 roles that I mentioned so far, we can characterize them based on this profile that we call the Tshape skill. So we have different skills, and you can have broad knowledge on them or deep knowledge on them. So each one of the different roles will have a deep expertise in one of the different areas, though all roles probably have some basic knowledge in all of those areas. So there's a broad knowledge here. I think that was the last one. Do you have any questions or observations? Otherwise, we can move on to the next part of the webinar, where we invite our guest, Eva, to share her journey.
Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot. Hi again. Yeah, this I have prepared a few slides to share with you a little bit of my journey through data in different roles. Here you have a snapshot of my career path so far. As I was mentioning in my introduction, I devoted the start of my career to really go deep into theoretical mathematics. Between you and I was not a big fan of statistics when I was doing my bachelor. And what it was really interesting to me, it was the more abstract, the better. And it was amazing how you could reuse abstract things to discover really new things in different areas. So I did my bachelor, then master's, and then PhD in areas that were closely related to algebra and number theory. But eventually, towards the end, it was a moment of retrospective and introspection, what I want to do with my career. And academic life was not something I wanted to pursue on one hand side because of the lifestyle. And at the same time, I was missing a little bit to have real impact and being able to feel somehow the impact of my work in a more direct way. So I started to look for other options and eventually discovered the world of data analysis and data science. And it was love at first sight. For me in particular, seeking for impact was also aligned with a secret passion, which was biology and medicine. And I was very lucky that my first position was as a biostatistician for clinical research. I was freelancing and contributing to a consulting company that was providing statistical analysis for drug development. So I was aligning with practitioners, receiving their data, managing it, and contributing back with analysis, understanding what success meant for them, and then going back to the data and figuring out whether their outcomes were aligned to that. That was really a lot of fun. And eventually I decided that the work-life balance that consulting provides was not really making me feeling well. In a way, it was not what I wanted to have. And I became more interested on other areas. There is also something about clinical research that it's a very high regulated industry. I was developing things in R, but eventually when you want to formalize your study, the results of your analysis to write papers, sometimes you need to go to other kinds of tools. And I found that in general, for my career path, I would be more competitive if I would open to other technologies like Python and R, and going deeper into SQL, etc. So I started looking around for e-commerce possibilities, and I found a BI position, a business intelligence position. The role itself, so my contract said BI analyst, but in practice it was BI engineering. And it was more sort of end-to-end. I was collaborating with different departments, with product and marketing, to understand what were the campaigns they were running, what were the experiments they wanted to run, what success meant for them, what tracking do we need in order to measure all the outcomes, and reporting back to them. But one of the trade-offs that you have to do when you are end-to-end is that you might not have the capacity to allocate time to the things that you love the most. And eventually I was finding myself that I was learning a lot about how things work in the backend. So how about databases, data pipelines, ETL. We were building lots of ETLs with JavaScript. So something that I was not expecting at all. When I first joined, and it was really a really nice experience. But eventually I was missing the analytics side, and I was this kind of initiative like we are having today didn't exist back then. So I was struggling a lot because I wasn't sure if it was me or if it was the role, the company. I don't know. I don't know what, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. Eventually in a meetup, I discovered that there exists a role that's called product analyst. oh, and they do the kind of things I really enjoy doing. So they focus really on the customer journey. They aim to understand really what caused that behavior to be in the way it is, or to change in the way it has changed, and to really measure how much it has changed. So I really like that role, and I started to look for those kind of positions. And I was lucky to find a couple more positions in this area. And eventually I ended up in Contentful in my current company as a product analyst. And yeah, it was really nice. I will go to that later in my presentation. Eventually, I became a full-time working mom. I was, and it was also aligned to the start of the pandemic, so lots of things to handle. And during my parental leave, I was reading a lot about management, and I have to say that on the record that my manager was really nice, that he remembered that I had this career path in my mind, and he reached out when the opportunity came in case I was interested, and I applied. First day back from parental leave, I had the interview, and it was successful. So I have been data analytics manager of the data analyst now since last week, product analysts officially at Contentful. And that's what I want to focus next. So if we could move to the next slide.
Eva, there is one question. Maybe it's good when we stay on the slide in order to answer it. It says, could you share what skills you develop most at each role? Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe a little bit on the skill set.
Absolutely. So from my first position as a statistician, I developed a lot of project management because from consulting, people want to know. It's not any people. It's a customer. So they want to know when you will have the analysis ready, and you better meet the deadline. So you really need to estimate how much it's going to take every milestone that you are planning. A lot of stakeholder management in this sense, understanding really the needs, because customer, you cannot bother them that easily. In a company, you might forget about what did we agree on, and then you send a Slack message. But when it's a customer, you really need to take the best of the meeting that you have. And a lot of technical knowledge. I was developing reports in R. I was automating the creation of reports with R. For that, the PhD was very useful, and LaTeX was really useful for that. And my masterpiece was a 1,000 pages analysis. And and probably the key takeaway from the consulting is that when you're starting, it might be a great opportunity because you have really lots of different projects. Every project is unique, and you develop different areas from the analytics perspective. Then in the data engineering, I was learning a lot about commerce itself, how it works, the different stages of product. For example, when I was working with the product teams, like when they are figuring out whether a problem is worth solving, when they are evaluating what is the best solution, when you are implementing and you need to define what is the tracking. So you really need to focus on what success means for that feature, and later to read together the outcome and understand what is causing what. Can I attribute the success to my feature? And at the same time, also from marketing, what are the campaigns that we are driving, combining search data with usage data, which is like the $1 million question for any e-commerce, really. And especially from the data engineering, how tracking works, debugging lots of. I was catching them all, so I was debugging all day long the tracking logic behind, and learning about different databases. We moved from an earliest instance to Redshift, and then understanding the back and forth of each platform. and different ETL. We were trying different ETL tools as well. And so it was very much around that. And then from product analytics, it was more about the different business, the business and going deeper into product. And then I had to really learn the secrets of the product, and it was not necessarily so much new in terms of technologies or analytics, but it was more about really learning the secrets of the product and contributing to it. And from my current position is precisely my next slide, where I want to show you a summary of the skills that I needed to develop over this last year. Because it's a very good timing, because last week I was celebrating my first year as a manager, and this is not an exhaustive list, but it aims to give you an overview of the things I needed to develop during this last year. Because I wear mainly three hats. The one of product manager. I'm managing around 20 stakeholders at least on a regular basis. I need to understand what they are working on, it's the phase of the things that they're developing, and how we can help, and make sure that the team is working on things that bring value to the product. At the same time, I'm people manager, and I need to make sure that we have the talent with the skills that are needed to support the company, and that they are engaged, that they are that the different team members are working on things that are interesting for them, and they're aligned with the career development, and that they have all the tools that they need to be successful. At the same time, as a Scrum Master, I make sure that we have the processes, internal and external processes aligned, and frameworks needed for the team to be productive and to reduce all the frictions. And these are the main hats. Contentful is big enough to have a big weight into the people manager, so I sort of can delegate most of the delivery, so I don't contribute to my daily life to code, although I support another request. And so that's why it's a bit separated. I make an effort to keep my tech skills up to date, because it's not the general thing. You can see in the market there are other positions where it's not necessarily that you're managing the team, but you are more sort of a tech lead, and you still need to you're expected to contribute as a fourth ball in this diagram in a way. So I do my best to not forget about this triangle in the corner. And yeah, if there are no questions around the manager role, probably one of the most interesting things is the evolution of the team over time, and also related to the question that we had at the beginning on analytics engineers. Here you have a diagram of the evolution of the team I'm managing. So when I joined, we were cross-functional teams of data engineers and data analysts. We were working on end-to-end, really, supporting product, but not only product, also company-wide projects. From September last year, we had two separate teams, one of data engineers and another of data analysts. This enabled us to focus on data modeling. Data modeling, not in the sense of data science, but more sort of ETL, ELT, for those who might not be familiar, extract, transform, load. So it's really the data pipelines, transforming the data. And we also did product analytics, so we needed to follow all the product development stages, and also company-wide projects. Company-wide projects could be things related to data science, but could also be contributing to departments that do not have an embedded analyst function, and they might need support. And wearing these three hats for analysts was very complicated to manage. So we incorporated at the beginning of this year a new role in the company, which is analytics engineers, who took over the responsibility of building these data pipelines and being the owners of the data modeling. In this way, now we have, this has been a very big task over the last couple of years from the data analysts, because when I originally joined, we had a lot of raw data, and or stakeholders had a really hard time self-serving from this data. And now with the data models that we have already developed and the analytics engineers taking care of them, we have a very good baseline of business logic already standardized and really well documented, so that it's really much easier to get access to the main dimensions that are needed. But still, balancing product analytics, product development has a continuous life cycle, so it never ends. But then we have projects that are just like punctual support. So this requires different ways of managing the expectations and defining the roadmaps, which is really hard to maintain. So we decided to split also those functionalities, and now we have a dedicated role of what we call core data analysts, which is closer to analytics engineers and data engineers physically, so as part of still the team. And they continue contributing to sort of more global data science projects in the company and ad hoc requests from different departments. And my team is now focusing only on product analytics. So now we are still one team. We are not embedded in the product team, so we're still one team, and we are contributing to all the stages of the product development. And as of last week, we are aligning our processes with research. So we are defining a new function, which is research and product research and analytics together, because our contributions are very much aligned. We need more or less the same information to kick off our projects, and most of the time, the things that we are doing are duplicating efforts. And if we can align from the start, what is the best source of information, we can optimize the value that we can bring in. So I'm really looking forward. Actually, this week we are kicking off internal workshops to define how we're going to collaborate moving forward. It's a really, really exciting moment. And I don't know if there are questions or...
Yes, so we do have some questions. I think they are mostly related. So the two questions, they are asking you, how do you manage to keep your tech skills up to date? And if you take a wide approach or a deep approach that I mentioned earlier.
That's a really good question, and it's a really difficult one because it's not that easy. I try to allocate time from my learning. So in Contentful, we have learning budget. So we have an amount of money that you can use every year for your development. We also benefit for 2 days a year of learning. So it's a day off that you can use to attend a conference, but also to develop anything. So to work on a workshop, on bootcamp, or learning anything that you might want to learn. So I try to organize my learning benefits accordingly, balancing what I need to learn for my role, but also what I feel I want and I need to learn also for being still competitive in the market. This is on one hand, and also on my day-to-day, I enjoy being involved in discussions with the analysts. We debate together what is the best approach for things. We get to pair here and there. Of course, it's not the same as when you are an individual contributor, but I make a conscious effort to keep up, following up with it.
Yes, thank you for that. As you were saying, probably it's because also of the career path you chose to go to management instead of individual contributor, so you focus a bit more on different skills than just the tech skills.
Yeah, exactly, and also aligned with with one of the things I was looking for at the beginning, having more direct impact. You can think about about having impact with your work by developing your tech skills deeper. But in one thing that I like about the management position is that perhaps I could learn a little bit more technical things, but my impact wouldn't be that, the delta in my impact wouldn't be as big as developing a team and having them, even if it's your only a bit, having them developing, and when you add up all those deltas, so the impact, I feel it is much bigger. And that's one of the most rewarding things of the role.
Nice. Yeah, thank you. It's a nice perspective. Different one, I think, from the individual contributor. I have a question, actually, if nobody has another question. I'm wondering about the last part here before the current situation. Like you described here, you have the data analyst and the product analyst split. Can you tell a bit more, for example, what kind of, or how do you decide, for example, if a project goes to the data analyst or to the product analyst?
That's a great question. And that's one we are sorting out at the moment. We still have a chapter defined within Contentful. So every other week we meet all the analysts in the company. We share what we are working on, and we ask for support, because sometimes you don't have the skill, but someone else can have the skill that it's needed. So there's really a question around where do we have the best skill set to answer that question. Most of the time, if the question has a scope that is really closely related to a department, there are things that the company can do about, like, providing ad hoc support. Most of the time, this will come from the core team when that happens, and it's out of the specific from product, for example. But and if this question is recurrent, then the corresponding department is encouraged to open a position to onboard someone with the right skills. But for example, we have opportunities right now that need collaboration between core analysts and product analysts, and we are gonna pair together because it's just the best way to move it forward. And it's a matter of aligning the roadmaps and balancing interest. We also have in my team, there were also interest on developing things that are closely related more to infrastructure, and we had individual contributors pairing with data engineers to learn more from that side. So it's always a question on balancing what is the scope of the problem and the domain, and also what are the skills needed and the development. The development plan for that person.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. And would you say that the technical skills are very much different, or is it more about the domain or the understanding of the product, for example, that makes more difference between a data analyst or a product analyst?
I think it's the main difference is about the domain, really. The technical skills are very closely related. The product analyst, in particular, as I mentioned before, I manage over 20 stakeholders on a regular basis. This means that we have over 15 teams in place. So it's, and Contentful's product in particular is very complex. So I myself am learning about the product every day. So we also have the analysts aligned to different areas of the product to become experts on these areas. And the way we can work together best is that when those core analysts are working in analyzing, in providing reports that put together different areas of the product with for example, the marketing campaigns, to bring the product understanding to contribute to global definitions of what a likelihood of churn looks like, or what a likelihood of growth, a score for growth looks like. And
okay. Yeah, cool. Thank you. It's an interesting split. I think it makes sense, like you were describing, that the product itself is very complex. So you really need people that understand very well the product, so you can understand, make sense of the data from the product. We have another question in the chat. Let me read it here. Do you have all tech skills for AI and machine learning work in-house? Or do you have any external partners or organizations that you work with who can come in to help with the project or initiatives?
That's a great question. So far we don't have all the tech skills for AI and machine learning in place. Also because so far we didn't find the need for them. Mostly in a way we are a B2B business. So that means that the amount of data that we handle, even though we are reaching targets of 1 billion API calls on a day-to-day basis, when we look at customers, the granularity is very sparse. So we don't have that many data points to work with. So we don't have that many opportunities to do forecasting models and so. And with the skill set that we had so far, with the skill set and the projects that we had so far, we didn't have the need for external support in this sense. But in any case, this is a common practice that sometimes when a company needs external, has a small department for a certain skill set and needs to incorporate that and to onboard and really measure the value that it brings, it's very common to see that they outsource the project for a consulting company, proves the value that it brings, and then once they see that it's really needed, then they invest on expanding that area in-house.
Okay, that's true, very common practice. And then in the case of your team, also, how many people do you have there as product analysts?
So at the moment there are 4. We are hiring.
Yeah, that's the plug.
and yeah, our idea is to keep growing over the next year, at least 1 a quarter. So it's really, we are really the product development is really the heart of the company, and we are really growing fast. And
what are the skills that you're looking for in your team when you're expanding the team?
So there is, it always depends on the area of the product. We are looking to match this person with, because there are areas that are more sort of in the core of the infrastructure, and we need someone that needs to be more familiar with the technical side of things, and perhaps more sort of software engineering or experience more into end-to-end data is more useful. For the current position that we have at the moment, we're looking more towards people that if it's familiar more with the business side. So if you're familiar with B2B SaaS, it's a perfect match. And if you're not, in any case, we are looking for more sort of, I want to say data science, but it's not necessarily a pure data science in the sense of machine learning and forecasting. It's more of a wider variety of tool set, where you can feel comfortable with some certain questions and recommending solutions. The more creative, the better. And we are aiming also to incorporate a bit more of experimentation in terms of A/B, not necessarily only A/B testing, because as I mentioned, our samples are rather small, but also really defining with the product teams how we are gonna test our hypothesis without necessarily really, releasing a complete new feature.
Okay, cool. So if anyone now listening is interested in this position, I think they can contact you directly, right?
Please.
Also want to add that it's great that we are covering this topic, because I think so far we didn't have someone with experience in product analytics, and the product analyst I'm also learning today. And yeah, I think it's great for everyone. It's a great value to have this one more role in the data career path. And maybe one more question. So one is the skills. I understand that a broad knowledge, like to have a good overview of the possibilities, right? That are there once you are working with data, to be able to know the possibilities, to be able to kind of estimate where a potential success is can be seen and so far, and define the correct KPIs and the goals. And at the end, is this position requiring the coding itself, or it's really just about planning, and then the data analyst or the people who are in research will be the one actually experimenting? Or are the product analysts also coding, let's say, themselves?
That's a great question. The product analysts code themselves. So we have different reporting tools, but we also use Python or R in notebooks, or even spreadsheets, if that's you feel more comfortable with. The idea is that to adapt the tool to the stakeholder and to the question at hand, and in the end, we aim to be the ones recommending, and then the decision is on the stakeholder. So we partner with our stakeholders so that we understand really what their objectives are. And we provide the analysis for that. Really strong SQL is really a must, because we need to source from the data. Sometimes the data is not in a data model, so we need to go back to the raw data and enrich them with those data sources as well. So it requires coding. Also, we don't implement the tracking, for example, but we recommend what are the points in the product that needs to be tracked in order to build certain KPIs, for example.
Okay, great. Yeah, sounds very exciting.
There's one question here. Eva, you alluded earlier to the product analyst $1 million question of combining search data and usage data in e-commerce. Could you speak a little more to that?
Yeah. Let me think. I mean, one of the biggest challenges is that from combining this data is that most of the time it comes from different tools, and we have laws in place that are there to like the GDPR, to make sure that our privacy is safe and the one of our customers. But at the same time, that makes it really hard when you want to combine data that it comes from different tools, and that's probably one of the biggest challenge for any e-commerce, because you need to fulfill all these requirements, and in a way you need to find compromises, and there are tools that are more sort end-to-end and they can cover a wider spectrum, but then they have the trade-off that you will get, they will not be optimized for the specific tool at hand. And so yeah, it's always, that's why it becomes the $1 million question, because any business would love to understand the impact of a specific campaign at the end in the revenue, and everyone wants to talk in ROI terms. And but yeah, when you're working on this kind of analysis, there is always a trade-off that you need to have depending on the tools that you have at hand.
Yes, I can also contribute to that, because I also have worked for e-commerce, and it's always this case, like you mentioned, you have different tools or have different data sources, and in each data source, let's say a session on the app or a session on the web or the order that was placed, this is potentially 3 different sources. That means that for the same person or the same client using your website, your app, or buying something there, you would have 3 different IDs. So if you're thinking about databases and you want to do like an inner join, you cannot use ID because it'll be different ID, then you end up with nothing. So you have to somehow find a way that you can translate it, but also following the GDPR restrictions. So it's not that easy. Yeah.
I can also add to this one uncertainty more is when you're actually at the end dealing maybe even with different set of users, because for example in my job we are analyzing marketing data, and nowadays often we have completely separated, and we don't have a touch point between the people who are active in our marketing campaigns, let's say the users on Facebook or Instagram who like and view our posts and maybe engage actively, and we have some information there, but we don't have any direct relation to the people who are actually buying our products. So, and we try to find the correlation and more importantly causation of these two worlds, but actually they are quite separate from each other. So yeah, this is definitely very challenging, but also interesting.
Yes, I see that Joshua has a follow-up question. Aren't customer data platforms a good way to address this?
Yeah, that's why you get pushed to sign up for newsletter. Every action you take in a website, you get pushed to deliver some of your private data, so that then you can really attribute certain actions, and if you're lucky, even reconstruct all your historical data. Probably this is one of the best approaches, but still it has its challenges, because you can still have an ad block in your web that doesn't allow to track all the front-end events, for example. So yeah.
Yes, that's it. So the thing is that it can help, but it's not 100% coverage. I think we can go back to the slide. Maybe that was your last one.
No, there should be one more slide, I think.
There's this one still. Yes.
Yeah, this is my last slide. I wanted to share with you a little bit how I decide to apply for a role, because it's likely that when you are on your first role, you might even have some time constraints, like I did in the past, and you might not be able to go through this process and really think carefully what's important for me, and you just see the interviews one way, like I need to get that position and I need them to accept me with my skills. And there is something I really like evangelizing, because it was mind changing when I figured it out, which is interview process are two ways. You're going to spend a lot of time working for the company. Most of your day-to-day is going to be dedicated to a specific role, to a specific product. And I was reflecting recently with some friends about how do we really decide to go for a position. So I put my thoughts together here, and the order matters. And really, these are the things I go through. And my aim is to, at the end of the process, to have answers to all these questions. These are very high-level questions, because there are things that might be important for you that are not as important for me, and yeah, and the other way around as well. So I really, these are, but in the end, these are like the high-level questions I try to answer. For me, the first thing that I look is what is the product. I want to be proud of saying I contribute to improving a certain product. And if the product that this company does, it's not close to my heart, I wouldn't even consider going forward. Then it's like the company culture and values. So there are bigger companies, there are smaller companies, but I always try to get as much information as I can for social media, from different sources, to understand, to try to picture how is the role in this company, how I would feel like, will I really fit in there? how is the work-life balance, expectations, depending on the type of company. And only then is when I read the role in detail and I think, okay, this role looks interesting because it's exactly what I'm looking into for my career development. Will I be really engaged all over for a long time, or will I get bored rather quick? So really, this kind of things come only in the third stage. And then probably this is more, the fourth and fifth are things that you figure out mostly in the interview process, because in the interview process, usually you have the chance to meet different team members, to meet stakeholders, and then you can picture yourself working with these people. And for me, the most important are the team and the manager in particular. Do I really want to invest a lot of time collaborating with these people on a daily basis? How is my manager gonna make sure that I'm gonna be successful in this position? And will this person make me feel appreciated? Will I feel rewarded from the work I do? Will this person really understand my needs and my aspirations? And it's only at the end, when you get an offer, that then you discuss about the salary and the benefits that it involves, and that might get you to a final decision. But yeah, I thought I would share that with you, because the feedback I got when I was discussing this with friends is that they were surprised that the role came only to the third part, and I found that perhaps that it's also that you want to think about and create your own list and your own prioritization.
That is pretty insightful. Thanks for sharing. And I think you're right to say that it's kind of eye-opening when you realize that the interview process is two-way. So it's not only the company interviewing you, but it's also about you getting to know the company, the team, the role that you are going to be at, especially when we are thinking about developing a career. So it's not only about getting a job, but really understanding if you want to be in this company for more or for longer and really develop your career. I think it makes sense when you describe their, for example, the company values. We do have a question, if you can give an example of a company culture that did not fit you, and maybe an example that fit you.
So something that don't fit you, that didn't fit me, is for example, I was interviewing with some company that it was a really small company. It was a really small startup where I had total flexibility to define my own role. And it could be more focused in the areas that I wanted, and also they were thinking about multiple roles, that's engineering, data analytics, data science, so I could really test and figure out on the way. And it was like great, flat hierarchies, but at the same time they were asking me directly to commit my 24 hours to them. They were expecting me to do overtime every single day. It was the normal. They said that to me straight away. And it's something that you decide in the end. I devoted 24/7 to my PhD, so I did it in the past, really. And there are different moments, stages in time where that could be fine. Yes. But there are moments where you reprioritize, you have other interests, and that might not be fine. So that is one scenario. There are other examples that we can think about. If you know, for example, someone that is working there, and you might be interested on the benefits that you might have in there. So, for example, thinking about working moms, it might be interesting for you to know if there are flexibility, if you have flexibility, what kind of support they had for childcare during COVID, for example. These kind of things might be more important for you. So it's closely related to the benefits, but in a way, you need to understand what's important, how is that important for the company. And And I highly
for example, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I know. If you had the chance to read about the company values that they have, that tells you a lot about the heart of the company culture, and that's.
Yes, I think now also because of the work from home, there is also, I don't know if that would be about benefits, but more really about company culture. If people are working remotely or if it's mandatory to go to the office, and if it's flexible, this kind of thing might also be considered a company culture.
Exactly.
And there is another question here. If you have to work with 100% Python developers, I don't know what that means. And if so, what is your experience as a data analyst coordinating with them?
From my experience, it all depends on the type of, usually there are challenges around prioritizing and avoiding bottlenecks, because when you need to rely to somebody else to support you, you need to adapt your estimations for them to be able to work on it. Usually, in terms of technical conversations, it's rather easy, because as analysts we also tend to be quite technical, so we own the requirements, and it's really nice to pair on this. I personally paired a lot with data engineers who were developing in pure Python, and that was always a lot of fun. And perhaps one of the biggest challenge is to define ownership. Most of our, I don't like to say conflict, but it's more say like challenges organizing the way we collaborate, where at the border between ownership of tools and processes. And and this is why one of the main reasons we incorporated analytics engineers, because ETL, it's a clear example of a border kind of work that might not be so enjoyed by data engineers who like to do more deep and challenging, technically challenging projects, and data analysts who really, we don't care about the pipeline. We want about the ETL itself. What we want is to get to use this data to really find interesting things and insights. So
yes,
then
it's a nice example. Okay, so if you have any more questions, we still have around 15 minutes to go, and we have some final thoughts specifically for people looking for their next job about the orientation on the labor market.
Yeah, thank you, Dania. So yeah, I'm happy to share some insights with you from the latest Deloitte report. If you don't know it, I'm recommending it. Every kind of few years, Deloitte is issuing a state of AI in the enterprise document, where you can read about the recent developments of the market in terms of AI. And here are a few insights that I really liked. I would like to once again just thank Eva for this session today, because today kind of we added two more roles. At least in my mind, I added two more roles, and this is also maybe for you just to like have them in mind and check them and see what they offer. Maybe this is what you want to do. So the analytics engineering and the product analyst. Yeah, I think it's a very important somehow, as the AI and the data science field evolves, that we have these specific roles, because that will lead that when you apply for a job, you know what it's meant, right? So it's not that you sign up for data engineering, you ended up building ATLs, right? So in order to avoid this, you just name it as a role, and then you get the people who are really interested in doing exactly that. I really like this idea, and I hope that more and more companies will continue somehow shaping the roles. But on the other hand, I want to say that that makes for the new joiners in the field, it makes it a bit difficult, because then you have to search smarter. So you have to search for all these roles actively, independently, you know. So if you don't search explicitly for a data, what we said, product analyst, then you will just miss those opportunities on the market. And this is also what we also recommend to the people who are looking for roles. If you want to work as a data scientist, you still have to search for data analyst role, because sometimes it's just how it's called, although at the end you do data science. So yeah, this is something that the whole field has to work a little bit on it. But anyway, this slide, I really like that Eva in her presentation had on the top of her list when deciding for a role and a job change, she had, what's the product that I'll be working on. I think this is really important. And here it says in which areas is AI used. You know, one thing is the business domain. So when you are applying for a company, usually you know what is their business. So what are they doing? Yeah, is it an e-commerce? Is it a what kind of company is it? Maybe it's in the automobile industry. It can be anything, but that still doesn't tell you what are you going to work on, you know, because this is only the whole scope of the company. But where, in which product, or in which, here it's called function, within that company data science will be used, it's completely other question, you know. So for example, you can work on improving processes, or like you can work at Zalando and you might think, okay, Zalando, like selling shoes, whatever, but you can work in logistics, and then you work really with logistics. It has nothing to do with e-commerce, because it's just about the fastest way to bring package A to like from place A to place B. So this has somehow like nothing to do with e-commerce, you might think. So I think this is very important to have in mind when you're thinking about jobs and where you want to see yourself and where you want to make an impact. One, the industry itself, and second, particularly the project. So here we see where usually AI is used. So surely the highest is IT. So although IT is such a vague term and very general, so it's hard to somehow say what's meant with AI. But then we also see there is finance and cybersecurity, and as I mentioned, like logistics, marketing. So really, this is something to have in mind. Of another example, once in the AI Guild, in another webinar, we had another Berlin Mathematical School colleague of ours, Nevena. She's working in a Sparkasse, so she's working in finance, you might say, but she's doing the same as me. So she's in the marketing domain, because even Sparkasse needs marketing. So at the end, you know, the product that you will be developing, it's important to choose the one that you are interested in and that you feel excited about.
Yeah,
and then,
like all companies, they have HR. So you can work in HR or, like you were saying, marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry to interrupt. We do have a question here. What are the key differences between the product analytics and the product manager roles? I think that's for Eva.
It goes back to Eva, yeah.
Yeah, so in product management, it's about deciding what to invest next, where to invest next, and product analytics is about measuring things. So measuring the success or estimating if it's worth the effort, for example. So both roles work very closely together. So in particular, we are our main stakeholders are product managers in product development, as an example. They are deciding where to invest the next, the capacity of the teams on developing. And product analysts, we crunch the data to validate hypotheses, to answer questions, and also to measure then the success of the decisions taken.
Yeah, thank you, Eva. Okay, so I think we can continue to the next slide. And yeah, so we spoke about the various areas where one can make an impact, so the various products, so to say, of the company. And this is another interesting slide, which is showing what is the aim of the project that one is working on, right? Because be it, as we said, marketing or HR or what we said, logistics, still the question is, what do you want to achieve with the AI tools, let's say, or models that you are developing? And here it's a 2D kind of slide where you, not slide, graph, where you see on one hand the benefit of the project, how much percent who reported the benefit as a top 2 objective. So this means that that objective of the product was considered to be the most important one. And then on the other hand, we have percent who achieved outcome to a high degree. That means that this objective was actually reached, right? So then we see that the highest point is making processes more efficient. And this is really great. When I saw this, I said, oh, wow, because sometimes we think about machine learning like, oh, I can recognize a cow or whatever. But actually, the highest impact is making processes more efficient. It's just about, maybe not just about, but actually it's a big impact, but it's about improving processing, right? And this is really great, and I like this goal. Then another one is improving decision making. This is another one that I really like, because I think there are not that many companies, and maybe especially in Germany, which are data driven, where the decision is taken based on data and based on analysis and not on a gut feeling. So this is something where, yeah, I think every company has a opportunity. So yeah, it's one opportunity to bring, or one step is to bring those smart people and make them build something. But the other is like to appreciate this and to use this knowledge and to make decisions based on that, because often the decisions that are suggested are not aligned with what one had a feeling of needing to do. So this is sometimes challenging, I think, but still it's great to see that it's considered a top benefit. And then yeah, maybe interesting to notice that in the left lower corner is reducing headcount. So this is something that, like, people maybe in general are kind of afraid of AI because people will start losing their job or whatever. But here we see that this is neither the goal or it's easy to achieve. So I don't think that we have here reason to be afraid of AI. And then finally, the next slide, or the last slide. So yeah, this is a slide from the previous edition. It is about the type of industry. So as I said, we spoke about the particular products, and here we have the type of industry. So we see that surely, since the highest investment is in AI as a product, then the industries which are profiting the most of AI and which are using it a lot are all the tech industry, like technology, media, telecommunication, entertainment. They are in the top line. And in the other edge is the government and the public sector. I think here there are lots of space for improvement. But I think, yeah, for me, always when I speak about this slide, it's like it's one of the so to say, the benefits of the pandemic, if one can call it this way, is that finally some sectors from the government and many bureaucratic questions started to be solved online, like whatever application for kindergarten in Berlin now is possible to do it online, or applying for a permanent residence can be done online for Brandenburg. So this is something that we could not even dream of. And now they see that actually it's not that difficult to implement and to make it work. So yeah, I think so this is I'll be interested to see this slide updated and see the government sector moving a bit upper in the curve. This would be really great. And the final one is like a motivation slide. That one is saying that the shortage of skilled experts is a very big factor. That means that really the industry is looking for those skilled experts, and if you are one of them, And if it's not that easy finding your first role, just don't be somehow discouraged, because the need is there, and it's just about being in the right time at the right moment for the right position, also for you, not just for the other side, so to say. And yeah, so this is good, somehow good, because it says there is an opportunity. Yeah. And yeah, so we don't have much time. The last slide was only about yeah, some advices, but this is already, I said what what you can do, right? So we said that you have to look for different possibilities, look for matches. Eva also gave us great tips on how to kind of really step by step estimate very analytically your kind of how to say, how much you like a particular opportunity, so that you know how much time to spend on it, or if you want to accept this role or not. And lastly, once you are in the advanced career, or even if you are not, I really recommend checking the accreditation procedure in the AI Guild. So this is something that we really worked on hard to kind of bring so to say a setup for the highest standard for AI. And this is something that we can peer review, and that you can apply for and become an accredited data scientist or data engineer or a product manager, so whatever you become in 3 to 5 years. But this is also very good to have checked, and to have it in your mind, also just to have it like a, you know, like a North Star, like where you want to be in 5 years. So check our webpage and check the quality standards and the accreditation procedure, because it can give you a hint. Okay, if I want to be a successful practitioner in this field, what do I have to achieve, and how can I achieve this? Then it's much easier to figure out how when you know what. So I really recommend this. And I think, yeah, here you can see some of the experts from the first cohort. Thank you very much for the session. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions in the future. Yeah, it was really happy to have you here and to have this active discussion. Thank you, Eva, also for joining us. It was a really great insights, everything that you shared. And thank you, everyone, that stayed until the end. Really appreciate it.